Hi and welcome. My name is Missy. I'll be guiding you through a short flow to loosen up your hamstrings. Props that will be helpful for today will be 2 yoga blocks. They aren't necessary, but if you're limited in your hamstring flexibility, they'll probably be pretty helpful. You can also use a chair or maybe like 2 chairs on each side of you instead of a block, or if you need a little more height. Let's go ahead and get started in extended child's pose. So come toward the back of your mat, bring your toes together and spread your knees wide, and then reach your arms out in front of you. Bring your forehead down to the mat and just start to settle into your space. So if you tend to tuck your tailbone, see if you can separate your sits bones a bit and then pull your rib cage in. Whoever you are, just kind of let your hips sink and settle. Notice how your hands, your forearms, your elbows, your forehead all kind of connect to the earth and ground down. Notice the connection between your mat and your knees, your shins, and the tops of your feet. And then draw your attention to your breath. Notice how your breath flows through your nose, down through your chest, your rib cage, and into your belly, and maybe even all the way down into your pelvic floor. Notice where your breath freely flows, and maybe where it feels a little restricted. And there's no need to force or change anything, just notice. And start to draw a little more intention into your breath, breathing into your rib cage, making it wider, breathing into your back, maybe even all the way down into your sits bones, filling up your whole torso with breath, and then slowly and gently letting it out with every exhale. Inhales, expand, breathe wide. And exhales, let it go. You can even sigh it out. With your next inhale, start to make your way into tabletop. So bring your shoulders over your wrists and your hips over your knees. Then tuck your toes. Gently make your way into downward facing dog by lifting your hips high up toward the ceiling. Soften your knees as much as you need to, and actually even if you have some hamstring flexibility, start with bent knees. Just put your sits bones up toward the ceiling. Tuck your rib cage bones in, and see if you can get a sensation of separating your sits bones and creating more space in your pelvic floor. Breathe in, and breathe out. And then once you've identified your pelvic floor, then maybe start to straighten one leg and then the other, walking your legs out and opening up your hamstrings. And again, if you need to keep your knees bent here, that's totally okay. Then find stillness. Take a big inhale. With an exhale, crawl your hands back to meet your feet. And your feet are still hip width distance, or you can even toe heel them a little bit wider. Bend your knees as much as you need to and let your head hang really heavy. Option 2, interlace your elbows and your wrists. Bring more weight into the ball mounds of your feet, so toward your toes. And again, lift your sits bones up to the sky, separate them, find space in your pelvic floor. And then maybe straighten one leg a little bit, then the other, perhaps sway side to side. Whatever feels good in your body here. Release your hands back to the floor. If you separated your feet a little bit beyond hip width distance, bring them back to hip width distance. You can also measure that by 2 fists in between your feet. And then crawl your way out back to downward facing dog. Take an inhale. And exhale, side out. Step your right foot forward in between your hands to find a low lunge position. And blocks can start to become really handy here. You can use them under each hand. So for now, we'll keep our back leg straight if that works in your body. Otherwise, you can drop your back knee down to the mat. And we'll be focusing on our front leg. So stamp your front foot down into the floor to start to activate your right thigh. We're just kind of warming up that muscle here. You can also kind of rock back and forth, kind of dip your hips and lift them back up, just whatever feels good here. Movement, stillness, we're really just still warming up. Now keeping your front foot stamped back down into the floor, gently start to lower your back knee down into the floor, again keeping that front leg active. And then option to keep your hands on your blocks, move them to your thigh. You can even lift them up to the sky. So right now we're activating the right leg, the right hamstring. We'll probably feel some action happening in our hip flexor and our psoas and our quadricep on our left side. And then as we take an exhale, we're gonna walk our hands and our blocks back for half splits. So straighten out your front leg and flex your toes up toward your face. Again, hands on the blocks can be really helpful here as this is a pretty intense hamstring and calf stretch. You can always have your hands on the floor, or again, you can use chairs on either side of you to support your body. Now come back to that separation of your sits bones. Breathe into your rib cage, your lower back, all the way in between your sits bones. Let your breath go into your hamstrings, your calves, creating opening, space. Crawl yourself back forward, back into your low lunge. And then lift yourself up into a crescent lunge. And again, you can stay on your back knee if that feels better in your body for balance, support. Keep pressing your front foot down into the mat. Take an inhale. And exhale, warrior two. And open up your arms. Make sure the heel of your front foot is in alignment with the arch of your back foot. And stare over your front middle finger. Keep sinking lower into your front leg and warming up the muscle. And then with an inhale, come up to star pose. And then an exhale, you're gonna bring your toes inward, either parallel or slightly pigeon-toed. And then with a flat back, you can bring your hands to your hips and slowly lower yourself all the way down to the floor. You can put your hands on blocks. And again, find the separation of your sits bones. Close your ribs if you tend to poke those out. And then get a nice hamstring stretch here. You can move side to side if that feels good, getting into your adductors, your hip flexors a little bit, your groin area. And then with an inhale, lift up halfway so your spine is nice and long. And exhale, crawl yourself to your left foot and take a low lunge on your left side. And we'll do that all over again on the left side. So again, stamp your left foot down into the mat. Keep your right leg behind you straight and strong. Always the option to drop down to your knee though if that feels better. And again, you can kind of rock back and forth. You dip your hips, bend your back knee a little bit, and then straighten it. Again, whatever feels good in your body here. Keep your front leg active. And then gently start to lower your right knee down toward the mat for a low lunge. And we'll take a few breaths here. Nice opportunity to open up the front of the right leg. And keep your front leg, your left leg active, pressing down into the mat. And then with an exhale, crawl your hands back and straighten your front leg for half splits. If your front leg doesn't go completely straight, that's totally fine. Again, you can use a chair to support you. And then find the separation of your sits bones. Breathe into your lower back, into your rib cage. Breathe deep and breathe wide. And we'll take one more breath here. And then crawl yourself forward into a low lunge. Again, option to lift up into crescent lunge. Keep pressing your front foot down, stamping your heel into the mat. Find warrior two, keep your front leg active. Building strength in addition to kind of warming yourself up. And then come into a star pose, heels and toes out. Release your legs, maybe wiggle your hips. And then we'll find that forward fold once again. So you can put your hands on your hips, hinge at your hips, and with a flat back, fold yourself forward. And again, bring your hands to blocks, the floor. You can use a chair out in front of you if that feels better in your body. And let your upper body release and soften forward. Again, if your knees don't totally straighten here, that's okay. Just stick your sits bones up toward the ceiling, separate them, find some space in the pelvic floor. And then you can straighten one leg at a time, maybe find some movement side to side, or just stillness. And shift your weight more into your toes. That will open up the backs of your legs a little bit more. With an inhale, find a halfway lift. And exhale, crawl your hands to the right side to find your right low lunge again. So again, activate your front leg, press your heel down into the earth. You can stay here or you can drop your front knee down, or your back knee rather, down toward the earth. And just keep your leg active. And then with an exhale breath, we're going to find a pyramid pose. So you're going to step your back foot in a few inches. Straighten your front leg as much as you can. Again, blocks are really helpful under your hands here. Keep your rib cage together and your spine long. And again, come back to that separation of your sits bones as you pull your right hip back and press your left hip forward. Again, your front knee doesn't have to be totally straight here. If it doesn't go there yet, that's okay. Just find your breath. Take one more inhale. And exhale back to low lunge. Step your back foot back out. And then we're just gonna crawl ourselves around to the other side. So find your left low lunge. You're gonna activate your front leg. Keep your chest slightly lifted. And then with your next inhale, or exhale rather, step your back foot in a few inches. Your foot can be at a 45-degree angle, your back foot. Press your right hip forward and pull your left hip back. Separate your sits bones, pull your ribs together, and breathe into the back of your left leg and your pelvic floor. If you can hear my dog snoring, I apologize. And then gently start to transition yourself back into your low lunge. And just find yourself in your wide-legged forward fold, so your toes will be slightly in, heels slightly out. And again, rest your hands on your blocks, your chair, or all the way down onto the mat. Lift your sits bones and let your upper body just fall forward. Shift more weight into your toes to open up the back line of your body. And with an inhale, bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Soften your knees, bring your hands to your hips. And with a flat back, come all the way up. You have the option to take a Shavasana here. Otherwise, we are done with our stretching. I hope you have a wonderful day.